Hi there, and it's Martin and Nick, and today we're going to talk about 68 Lichfield Road, which is in Nottingham. Now, as preparation for this call, I spent a lot of time just studying the city, the demographics, and other interesting features, so I feel like I'm reasonably up to speed with everything. Martin, you did prep earlier as well, didn't you?
Yeah.
And the reason we've done all this homework is because it's a city that we haven't assessed that many times before. It's a city I personally know because I've gone to Nottingham for sporting events as a competitor for like 30 years and, you know, hung out there. I've always quite liked Nottingham. It's got a reputation for a lot of drug crime. But as ever with crime, it's all about which area you're in. And as you know, if you've watched any of other assessments we've done, crime is a very localized thing. Anyway, let's get into it. And I'm going to share my screen and we'll go from there. Now, I just want to talk about the house firstly, and just to say it's a small property, but it's been used in quite a clever way. The front bedroom, or the front room, is actually a bedroom. So you've got two people renting the property. And it gives it a really high yield or really high rent of 820. But what they do is they use the front room as a bedroom, as I said, and then when they get access, they go through the side gate, around the back, through the kitchen, and then they use the dining room as a main living room. Then you can get access to the upstairs through the dining room. And that, by coincidence or by good luck, makes the whole property really work. And they're using this bedroom as a storage room, even though in theory you could squeeze a single bed in there. But anyway, it seems to work quite well for two people.
Yep.
I'll just rattle through this. The kitchen's in reasonably good order. We're going to have a look at the virtual tour in a minute. Now, the other thing to note is that this property had a very extensive renovation. That's a cable, not a crack. And it was probably done in the 70s. There's a few reasons I feel that. We'll talk about that in a minute. So let's just go with the weird room first, which is the bedroom. It's been painted and decorated, and look at that new central heating, or sorry, new piping, which is interesting. So the owner has obviously modernized the property where absolutely necessary over the years. Laminate flooring. I assume it's laminate, but it could be actually solid wood flooring, you know. The reason I think that is because I can kind of see quite a lot of visual texture here. Anyway, it could be solid wood flooring. But in any case, we've got a double bed here. And as I said, that UPVC door, that's not used. Now, this ceiling is kind of interesting, bit of a pop mark there. I deliberate as to whether that's been, the plaster and lath has been removed or not. I think it might have been. The reason I say that is because you've got these kind of cracks here. In old plasterboard, you often get that where you get kind of cracks, but it looks very undulated to me. I wonder if that's plaster and lath. It's not a huge problem if it is. It's just that the textures won't be so good, or that the surface won't be so nicely done. But I don't know because there's no cornicing. So I would say the jury's out on that one for me. Here is definitely plaster and lath, and plasterboard. And I say that because you can see kind of cracks here, straight ones, not cracks, but undulations. So that has been done. I suspect the front room hasn't been done. We've got very cheap paneled door here. It is what it is. Carpet in a bit of a state. Laminate flooring, but reasonably okay laminate flooring. It could be engineered wood, in fact, as opposed to the thinnest, cheapest laminate flooring. I'm not 100% sure. I suspect it's engineered wood.
Yeah, but it's because this property is tenanted. I will
yeah,
this.
exactly. You don't. Yeah, exactly. You wouldn't touch this property because unless they say please do it, then you wouldn't do it. Laminate flooring here. Kitchen is probably 15 years old, I would say.
It's
Probably
okay.
around that. It's pre. So this is an electric hob, obviously. If it was a modern kitchen, it would have an induction hob, and therefore it tells me that it's about 15 years old, this kitchen. Doors are a bit coming off the thing, etc. It's just been worn, hinges have been worn, but it's okay. You know, it's a functional kitchen.
Nice yeah, small, nice kitchen. Yeah.
This is quite interesting, the piping here. So I wonder where the central heating boiler is. Let's go upstairs, and there's the bathroom, which is reasonably okay. Another clue that it was a very 60s, 70s, more 70s than 60s. This is a very 70s look. That kind of coffee colored, mushy coffee colored tile was very popular back then. Power shower, probably not very powerful, but it is a shower. Badly done piping, but it is what it is. It's done the best, you know, it's the best it can be. And then you have the shower curtain. You've got a rather unpleasant light fitting. Again, I would say 70s because it's either LED, been upgraded to LED, or it's tungsten, and we've got our vent here. Now, just to say, if you're renovating this property and doing it on the cheap, what I would do is just get rid of the paint, leave the coffee color. As much as it's dated, it's now a kind of curiosity feature, and then I would just either overpaint this white or leave it as is, almost same color. But anyway, let's move on. And fitted furniture, again, very 1970s, so that's fine. Central heating throughout, obviously. It is small, and oh yeah, polystyrene tiles on the ceilings. They were good for heat insulation. They're bad for health. I mean, not health, but they're bad for fire safety. So the issue here is that when this goes on fire, because it's polystyrene, it will drip down red hot, burning polystyrene if it ever catches fire. So it's really not good at all. And if you're renovating, you definitely change that. Let's have a look here. Chimney breast, amazing. I assume this property would have been one big room at the front, because there wouldn't have been a lavatory here. It would have been outside in the backyard.
The boiler is here?
I assume it must be.
No, on the right side, next to the window.
Oh my goodness, yes. Okay, well, no wonder they decided to not stay in this room. So that's a fridge freezer, and there's a boiler. What a badly placed boiler. You just wouldn't. So what it means is that this room will never be a bedroom, because how could you sleep in that? And there's the front room. I think we've looked at everything, haven't we?
Yeah, just to check the videos from the viewer now.
Yeah, we'll go through that, and let's do that now. So here we are. This is the wrong video. Let's just go to the other folder, which is open. There we are. It is a solid brick construction, by the way, so it will never be that thermally efficient.
But it's surprisingly EPC is D, and the score is 65. So which shows that the property is still okay.
Carpet on the stairs is badly done, needs redoing.
But not now.
No, you know, this is the kind of property you just leave. Great yield, by the way.
Until you change the tenants.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice, good flooring in that room. Shame it'll never be used again. I really don't understand why they wouldn't put it in the kitchen somewhere. The boiler, that is. It's just weird. It's such a health and safety hazard as well, because, you know, if it goes wrong, then you got a problem, like a death problem, because carbon monoxide poisoning.
This is
There's a little cabinet in the corner. You know, living in a property like this is almost like living in a big caravan.
Oh, they have
interesting. Cellar. Okay. Let's just have another look at that. Okay, well, that's interesting. So at least there's some storage down there. Very interesting.
Yeah, and I guess that the young people, I guess they're two friends, I guess they use it as storage, or maybe sports, or I don't know.
Nice to see the fully working fire. Sporty types, you can see the drinks bottle. Okay. And the backyard, I'm very curious to see that. Why has, oh, there it is. Okay, very good. So it's private. It is overlooked, obviously. It's private, but it's okay. It's okay. All right. So that's all of that. Now let's have a look at the demographics and the capital growth and so on. And there's quite a lot to talk about here. I will do my best to summarize. In short, Nottingham has done relatively well for capital growth, long term. And what we're looking at are these numbers. So more brown is more good. More green is more bad. And if we zoom right out and we look at the overall trends for the area, then we can see that actually Nottingham has been relatively prosperous. Whereas cities like Derby, not so good. This place, Stoke-on-Trent, not so good long term. So this is capital growth from 2008, inflation adjusted. And just to give you a quick idea of what's going on, markets go in cycles. This is 1845, this is date. The red arrow represents a peak. We're creeping towards another peak. And the key metric is the price in 2008 relative to now. Now, the difference between 2008 and now is that interest rates were much higher than they are today. So interest rates were circa 4.5%, 5%, that kind of thing. And people were spending a lot of money relative to their income. So they were spending circa, say, 40% of take-home pay on mortgages. And that's because people had confidence in the market and the market's going up. And then you had the crash. Then affordability returned, and now we're entering into another of these cycles. The same pattern occurred in the past. So whenever I look at capital growth, I'm just interested in seeing how prices did relative to then. And there are patches of Nottingham where prices really have not done well. So in this little patch here, for example, it's done quite badly. And then the question is why? Well, I could find out, but I won't right now, because it would make this video very long and you wouldn't love me for that. So we're just going to concentrate on this patch and see what's going on here. And the upshot is that long term, certainly in the surrounding areas, it's been very good. Now, oftentimes what happens is you get areas with a lot of local authority housing. I'll make it bigger. You get a lot of local authority housing and it gets sold off and then resold onto the open market. And that's why you see a big jump in prices. So in capital growth. And it's just simply an effect, as I said, of people buying discounted property and reselling on the open market and people wanting to buy. And whenever an area is desirable, like the properties are nice, the crime is low, etc., you get this effect. Anyway, let's just hide that layer so that we can look at the shorter term story. Now, what's going on here is that short term, it's been very strong. So 18% growth since 21, real inflation adjusted, or since 2018. It's very strong growth, some of the strongest in the country, in fact. And this area, it's quite mixed. So demographically, let's have a look here. Demographically, it's a lot of C1, so it's a lot of renters. There's a lot of private rented around here, which makes sense because they're small houses and they're not really
central.
And it's central. It's not really family accommodation as such. Very mixed around here. And that's okay. Mixed is fine. It's when it's not mixed and let's say it's culturally very differentiated from the majority of the population, that's when it's not fine. Anyway, it's a quiet little road, very little crime on this road, a bit more over here. One of the oddities about this area, and it's something I've never seen in other cities actually, is this kind of thing. So there were obviously terraced houses in these areas here. They were all knocked down, probably after the war, when Nottingham changed from a big industrial city to no industry. And all of this was turned into allotments. Quite weird. Very, very interesting. Just an odd feature of this area. Okay, so crime is okay. Patchy would be the best way to describe it, but broadly okay. And demographics, very mixed, but not too culturally exclusive. So that's something. And I would say that from a property turnover point of view, it's churning a bit, but it's not huge. Now, the reason I say that is I track the number of sales per 1,000 people, house sales per 1,000 people per year, and there's not a huge amount of churn here. So what that means is the area isn't changing that much in terms of demographics. Yes, prices are going up, but it doesn't feel to me like it's an area on the change. And prices are on a par with 2008. In other words, they're at that kind of level. They're kind of on the high-ish end, I would say, and the strength of this local market is coming back, mainly because people are looking for value. So the best value has been bought up, and therefore investors are kind of looking at these slightly compromised properties because they're a bit on the small side, but you've got the location and you've got reasonable demographics as well. It's just a renting area in a nutshell. It's okay. It's just a renter area. Okay, Martin, over to you.
Yep. I will go first with the EPC. It's 57 meters squares. It's fresh made EPC like in December last year. And 65, that shows that the property is good and doesn't have solar panels. Yep, it's as you see the solid brick as built, no insulation. This is the main house, and the cavity wall as built, no insulated. This is the extension. The roof have insulation, which is really good. So yep, like the lighting is good, hot water is good, like floor is good. So boiler and radiators are good, so that shows that the property is good. To make it see, basically, maybe you need to make floor insulation or to add internal or external wall insulation. But when it's terrace house, there is not a lot of costs because you don't have large.
Well, it's small, isn't it? So everything is just tighter.
Yeah, So I will go for the location. I will just shortly, like I will zoom out. It's really close to the river. I mean, not really, but it's really close to central Nottingham. It's like 15-20 minutes by walking if you want to walk, or if you want to go by transport. You have like 90 minutes. Depends where. If you want to go here, for example, you will need 10 minutes. So based on the other stuffs, you have schools, you have academies, you have a lot of small shops around. Not really small, but you have shops around. If you go on the street level, you will see it's full. It's with small stores here, so it's like really central location. So yep, and as you see, that's the property, and it's not really far away from the main train station in Nottingham. It's like, yep, the location is really nice. So based on the location, if you go to the house is built before 90s, as I said, is 57 meters square. It's freehold. The last selling was August 2017 for 70k, and I guess so that's about it. When you go to the mining issue, the property is here. You don't have any coal mining issues, so you don't need to be worried about the risk with coal minings. About the flood risk, there is no risk at all around. You have near the river, but you're so far away from that, so you don't have any risk. As you can see, very low risk. We'll go to the comparables now. Just to copy, paste that post. If you go for rent, just because this is down 820, so I just want to give you comparables for the tenants around. I mean, how much the rent. So you can see like 750, 800, 850, 90. So it's the as you see that the rent will stay as it is. Like if you renovate it, maybe you'll rent it for 850, so just 25, 30 pounds more than it's now. So about and when you go to the comparables, I will just show, and I will go for newest listed. So 130, 130, 160, 140, 120, 140, 150, 165, 140. So the price is around 130. Okay.
Well, these are the asking prices. What about the sales price, the sold prices?
So I will go with 130 for this, 102. With these 3 bedrooms, not comparable. 115. I just want to see how much it was listed. If I can see it. But look the condition.
Yeah. And how much were they asking for that? That's a much bigger property.
But this was sold for 115, but it needs around 30k to renovate. It's not really, yeah, it's bigger.
That's a big property.
Yeah. But basically, the only biggest is bathroom, but they include the cellar.
Yeah, but it's like twice the floor plan. But I suppose they're including the cellar, which is a bit cheeky. All right. So okay.
The asking price is as I think it's okay. So because of the tenancy, but because you don't need to be. So you can see this is like example.
So what yield will it achieve?
You can see it's similar. This is like really similar property, and it was sold for 123.
Any pictures of it to just assess condition?
Yeah. The doors are old, but it's okay. Not really, but it's a little bit larger, just a little bit, because on the floor plan you have the toilet more than what we have. But this also is only the kitchen. So 1, 3, 4. This is like example 1, 1, 2. Let's check the condition. They're asking a little bit, much better. They're asking a little bit more for this property because it's end of terrace house. And that's why also this example end of terrace house usually are more like, let's check this, but this was bad condition. That's not comparable. So I will just extend this. Yep. 1, 2, 1, 4, 5, not the same. Not maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
So the so just on yield, what are we looking at?
Yeah. So 8 to 12 on the asking price is 7.6. So which is very nice.
Yeah, I feel okay. Should we do some scoring and go into it? All right. So sharing my screen. I actually, just before we get into this is NG1, I think. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
And just on the growth overall. Okay, so the first, let's just do sales and rent. It's not especially a hot market, and it's not especially hot for renting either. It's not like Manchester, which is just scorching hot. It's okay. It's kind of borderline acceptable. So this property shouldn't sell that quickly on average, but who knows? I'd have to talk to them and see. But in respect to capital growth, it's one of the best in the country, which is interesting. And Nottingham as a whole has done pretty well. All right, let's do the scoring. And for condition, I would give it a 3, maybe a 3.5. It's okay.
Yeah, 3.5, just because it's tenanted. So basically, you don't need to be worried about that.
Yeah, location is good, isn't it? It's 4 for location. Now the area.
I will give. Yeah. Because of the location, I will give more, but the area and the demographic I will not give really nice.
Yeah, I would kind of go 3.5 for the area. Crime,
it's okay.
3 so it's not great. There's quite a lot of crime around the place, but there isn't too much crime on the doorstep. So it's okay. It's not bad. It's just okay.
Yeah, demographics. I think 3.5 as well.
I'd go 3.25 because I think it's very, very mixed. Yeah, and it's kind of borderline culturally exclusive, which is a problem. So I would do that. Capital growth, it's very strong. Sell time, whatever. You know, in other words, if you've got the property in your hands and you've got to sell it on, how quickly can you move it? It'll move. It's not a particularly high churn area, so there isn't a massive amount of liquidity in the area. Price, I guess it's okay. I'll go 3.75 on that. It's okay.
Yeah, so
rent time,
it's tenanted, so
yeah. But if you had to get new tenants, I don't think you'd rent it that quickly. I think it would rent okay, quick-ish, but it's not a very desirable property, and it's got lots of compromises. But some young people who don't mind kind of slumming it, but they want the location, they would live there. But it's not an optimal tenancy for a family who are just going to settle down and live there for the next 5 or 6 years. And therefore, I give it I'm going to go 3.75. It's not great. Yield is exceptional.
Yeah, 4.5.
The thing with a lot of high yield, before we do the final score, is that you often find that high yield properties have high compromises. So you could get a terraced house, which we reviewed recently, in fact. You could have a little terraced house in Liverpool. All the other vitals are okay. But I remember in the video seeing the tenant, and it was just some young early 20s guy with a skinhead just going, geez, geez. And I just thought, do I really want to be the landlord to that kind of person? And the answer is no. Now, in this case, the clue for me was they had a sports bottle, etc. They're probably graduates. They're probably just doing stuff, whatever they're doing. So, it'll be an acceptable tenant, I suppose. But anyway, 3.93, it's slightly below our magic 4 number. It's on average. It has its redeeming qualities.
Yes, but maybe I think area, I will give it, if it was me, I think the score is a little bit high than a reality of the property. I think the reality
on the area?
Maybe you can, I will give on the area 3. Because it's not the best area, and demographics, I think, are 3.23. I will go for the area.
Yeah, okay.
And
I think the demographics are a bit suspect.
And I think the location, I will increase 4.2 in my case. Yeah. Crime is okay because near the house is not so.
But there is quite a lot of crime on the high street.
And maybe the sell time 3.5 and the price. The price is okay. So this show a little bit better the situation of the property, because I think we score it a little bit higher because it is supposed to be, because it's not. This property more works about the yield. If you want yield, tenanted, not worry about it. Just buy it.
Exactly. One thing I will just draw your attention to is how it did in the crash, because the other side of the coin is, what about the risk? And the answer is that in the period from 2003 to 2008, there was massive house price growth throughout the country, but this area hardly moved at all, like 17%, which is incredibly low, relatively speaking. And then from 2008 to 2013, it crashed 33%. So it crashed quite heavily because it's relatively economically vulnerable. Now, just to give you a kind of relative score here, NG1, it was one of the lowest growing areas in the country in those early days. And it crashed pretty hard. So in other words, it was one of the worst performing areas in the crash, one of the least resilient, let's say. And then it recovered one of the best, so from the bottom of the market to the top, or should I say from the bottom of the market to the top, it was one of the better ones, and now it's a hot area. But as I say, this is because we're entering the boom phase and people are trying to find value, and it looks like value, but it's demographically quite fragile. And I think if it was me, I would not buy this property, but I'm not you, so you decide what you decide, but I just wouldn't have it. I think I would rather buy further out and buy a 3-bed semi, ex-local authority in good order, that is fundamentally solid, that can potentially get an EPCC without too much risk. That's what I would have.
But this doesn't have risk to have EPC. It just needs external wall insulation. And this property is tiny, so. But it's
exactly.
It's
all right.
So it's all right. If you're searching high, if you're making portfolio, for example, and if you want one high yield, this is it. So.
Yes, exactly. It makes for a very good high yielder. You're right. Exactly that. Well said. All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.